Hi FlossTube friends, I'm Sherry, Colorado Cross Stitcher here on YouTube, also on Instagram, and I have a cross stitch store, coloradocrossstitcher.com. So this is my FlossTube channel about my own personal cross stitching, and then we do just probably 5 minutes at the end about new things in the shop, and we have a lot of new things this time, so that's super fun. But let's jump right in. Thanks so much for joining me, and I hope you have fun watching this. Leave me a comment below and we'll chat in the comments like we always do, which is one of my favorite parts about floss tubing. All right, first of all, I'll show you my calendar because you know I keep a calendar. So here's June. And I know I've said this before, but I feel like it's so handy for me to have this calendar because I keep track of all of the fabrics I used. I keep track of if I've made any thread substitutions. I keep track of when I started and when I finished, which that's new this year. But I just put a little S or a little F on the date when I do that. And I also add personal pages on the back. And I think the more personal you make it, the more fun things you add into it, the more valuable this calendar becomes for you. So like in the front, I have a lot of fun photos and stickers that are just too cool to put in the middle of the calendar, so I wanted them in the front. And then at the back, I've updated a few things, so I was going to show you that. So I have a lot of pages like this. This came in the Reflet de Soie summer box last year, and I said I was going to add them to my calendar. And so on the back, I have lists of smalls that I want to make, lists of large things I want to make, samplers I want to make, seasonal things I want to make. So it's just kind of a bigs to make, just a way to keep track of kind of my stitching thought process and things I don't want to lose track of. Then I have a sheet of the audiobooks I've listened to while I've been stitching this year. And I have my word of the year, which is grow. And then I have a page with my finishes. I'm not up to date because I have a lot of finishes to show you today that I haven't put on here. But I have plenty of pages for taking pictures of those finishes. And then I have, which I updated, a page for fun. So I did Nashville needlework. I had a little weekend with some friends, and then I went to the Bristol weekend, and that was super fun. I'm going to talk just a little bit about that because I have some thoughts about that. And events of note, just things that happen that are unusual for the year or fun for the year that I wanted to put in here that aren't stitching related, but that I want to remember. My stash list is woefully unupdated because I have added way more stash than that. All right, so that's how I do my calendar. And I received this really fun sticker book from a friend, and I wanted to show it to you. I keep forgetting to show it to you, but it has really cool, really cool stickers in it. Just some different ones, unusual ones. And so I will try and remember to link to that below because I'm having a lot of fun with this particular sticker book. And as you can see, every time I show my calendar, I like to sticker things up. Okay. Well, I spent the whole day in my sewing room yesterday. It's my least favorite thing to do. Not that I don't like my sewing room, but I just don't like finishing things. But I had a lot of things to finish, and of course when they're done I always am so glad that I did them and I love them. So I have a lot of that to show you. I have progress on one thing, I have a new start, I have 2 big projects to show you that aren't even mine that are kind of fun, and then I have a new way of kind of organizing some of my patterns that I wanted to share with you. So let's jump right in. First of all, before I forget, I showed this little Bristol inspired Biddy necklace that I stitched the last time. That's stitched 1 over 1 on 46 count. And a lot of you asked if I could make that pattern available, so I did a free pattern on our free patterns page. Now when I stitched this, I did make up the little parts of it except for the initials. So I couldn't put the initials on the free pattern. So I put 2 birds on it that I had actually included in the original design when I was thinking I was going to stitch it 1/1 on 56 count, and I was crazy. And so then I had to amend the pattern. So anyway, this is what the pattern looks like. Generally, you're not supposed to show patterns on videos, but since it's mine and it's free, I'm going to show it to you. So I added the 2 birds, and I just encourage you, if you want to make a necklace like this and put your initials in there, look at one of your, I think I took this from one of my Bristol stash patterns, probably Harriet Salt, I'm thinking. You know, a lot of those alphabets are similar. Anyway, you can't probably see it on here, but I indicated little lines to show you where to add your initials. Or of course you could stitch it like this. I want to stitch it like this again on a little bigger count and just have a little tiny, not this tiny, but a little frame to put it in with the birds. So just a note that is a free pattern on our free patterns page. Thank you for those of you who asked for that and liked it. All right, let's talk about what I worked on. So I went back to my crowns and shields piece, which is just such a joy to work on. And I was thinking about that when I was working on it this week, like why do I enjoy this one so much? And I think it's because, you know, I really have fun stitching single colored things. You know, that Quaker Christmas 2 I did, that History Stickmuster, Quaker Gardens, Quaker Christmas. I can't remember what it's called. I showed it 2 videos ago, I think. I'm really enjoying that one. And I think what I love about this is it's different colors, but each motif is the same color. And so it's just really relaxing stitching. So I'm doing this one at the bottom. I'm not going to finish it as a pillow because I want to have a long, narrow frame, which I think will look really cool. And I am doing something different because the pattern itself has 9 cartouches for different initials or dates or whatever you want to put in there. And since I'm doing samplers for as many family members as I can, a whole sampler with their name and information, I didn't really need to stitch in family initials or family dates. I thought you could also stitch in maybe different towns you've lived in, different street addresses. You could stitch names of your special friends. So there's a lot of ways to use that space, but I decided, because it was 9 spaces, to do the fruit of the Spirit from the Bible. I had to look up today if it was fruit of the Spirit or fruits of the Spirit, and in the Bible it says fruit of the Spirit, so that's what I put in here. So this is how far I am, and I just doodled up those fruit of the Spirit words on a piece of graph paper. So I kind of looked at the whole piece overall and listed out the words that I was going to be using in there and which of the cartouches could handle a larger word and which was going to have a smaller word. Then I decided I wanted to put fruit of the Spirit there in the middle with the Bible reference. And so there's one over on the end here that's a little larger. You can't see it because it's very light colored, but it's a little larger, so I'm going to add 2 to that one. I initially thought I could squeeze in the word joy in one of the crowns that has like a bigger empty space, and it's not going to work the way I'm doing this. So I do know that I made a mistake on the border, so if you're sitting there looking and saying, hey, above the F, it looks like you screwed up your border, I did indeed screw that up, so I will be taking that back out tonight. But it's okay. It's a simple border. You know, better to have a simple border to pull out than something really complicated. So anyway, that's how long it goes. So I don't have a whole lot left to do, and I think I'm just going to keep working on it. I've been working on it this week because I wanted to start putting the words in, and now I'm just like, I really want to get it done. So the words are over 1. I really don't mind stitching over 1. One tip for stitching over 1, what I do find hard is on a pattern that has over 1 stitching, when I first started it, I would look at it and think, okay, so this stitch goes in the top left corner of what would be my normal stitch, and then this stitch goes in the top right corner of what would be my normal stitch, and I kept trying to orient my mind to where on the graph that was, so that's where it goes on the piece. Does that make sense? Instead, I just start with one stitch, I ignore the squares on the pattern, and I just stitch the stitches as I see them. So, you know, if I'm doing the letter F and it has 3 stitches across, I don't worry that it's, you know, one part of this square and one part of this square and one of the next square. I just do 3 little 1/1 stitches in a row, then I do 8 down or however many. And to me, that's a lot easier to do stitching 1/1 if you're stitching in relation to the other stitches you've already put in. I hope that makes sense. But all right, so that has been a super fun project. I did some smalls this month because last month for Stitch Mania, you might remember I started 3 big samplers. And so I was in the mood to stitch some smalls. So what did I do? I started a really big sampler instead. And that is, let me get it out of here. Look at this beautiful bag my friend Sandy made me. Oh, she is the best bag maker. Just so fun. So I went to Bristol Weekend at the Attic, which was so much fun, and I highly recommend if you are interested in Bristol samplers, or even if you're just interested in samplers. It's such an important part of our stitching history that I really think everybody should go and learn more about them at least one time. But I started this, I bought this pattern there, 15 Friends, and I'm going to show you the back because it shows you the antique, but we saw the antique there, and the antique is like 10 by 10. This girl was stitching on, Jean counted it, and it was 72 count. So she was stitching over 2 on 72 count. And her stitches looked like really, really light red, almost pink, and I loved the softness of that color. So I don't know if you can see that back piece that was hers, but it was so fun to see that in person, of course. And the reason it's called 15 Friends is because Jane, who stitched this, worked in the bed numbers of 15 of her friends in this piece. So you'll see 15 different bed numbers in here, which is just so sweet. You know, I don't think they were allowed to put other names besides their own name, or at least they didn't do that. And so for her to want to include some of her special friends was really cool. All right, so I started it, then I had an issue, but here's my little start. And I will tell you what thread I'm using in a minute. Because I don't remember. I'm doing it on 46 count. I think it's toasted coconut, and I'm doing it on Tudor silk, which I got from the Attic. And I'm doing it in, hang on, Cotswold pink. Cotswold pink. I don't know how many I need, but I always overbuy thread because you don't want to lose momentum and run out of your threads. So Cotswold pink, I think toasted coconut by Forbidden Fiber. And so I cut the piece, and of course I always measure very carefully. I refigure the stitches and the amount of fabric I need like 3 times, and especially something this big, because you sure don't want to get going on it and realize you cut your fabric incorrectly. Stitching along, and I realized after I'd done this much that it's wider than it is long, and I just automatically started my fabric the other direction. So I put a halt to it, and I counted out to make sure I had enough because I didn't want to do any more until I knew. So what I did was I used white thread, and the reason I used white is I didn't want to use a color and have it leave any dye whatsoever in the fabric. And then I counted down, and every 10 stitches I did a half stitch. And I don't know if you can see that all along the way there, but I went all the way down to the bottom, and then I counted how many groups of 10 I had, and here's where it ended, and I have enough to do the piece as it is. So I was so relieved about that. I didn't do it across because I know I have enough across. Thank goodness I gave myself 3 inches to do that extra. And I think that's a good reason for giving yourself 3 inches border instead of maybe 1.5 or 2 or 2.5. Because if you do happen to make a mistake, at least on your big projects, you know, maybe not on the smalls that you can pretty well see pretty quickly if you've done something wrong in your measurements, but at least on the bigs, maybe consider giving yourselves a little more space, just because then you won't have to do what I did. See on the back, you can see the thread running down the back there. So now that I know it's going to work, I'm anxious to get back to it. It's such a fun piece. Okay, so another thing about Bristol Weekend was it was just so fun to learn more about the samplers. Now, I've watched George Muller's documentary on YouTube, which was fascinating. See, I always talk too much and then I have to get a drink. So I watched his documentary. We've seen it a couple times. Paul and I both watched it. So I felt like I had a feel for Bristol samplers, but I just learned so much at this particular weekend. Packed full of information, and this one actually focused on the colored Bristol samplers, which who knew there was any such thing. So here is a picture of a colored Bristol sampler. The colored samplers were the second sampler that a girl, or some boys made second samplers too, made. So out of all the Bristol samplers, about 20% of the kids who made them chose to do a second sampler. And you know what? These are our people. These are the ones who did that huge Bristol sampler and said, well, that's not enough. I love stitching. Let me do another one. So that in itself makes me just love the colored samplers, because I feel like those were the girls and guys who just really had a passion for stitching like we do. So it was fun to see. They had a few of those antique ones there, a few of the antique Bristol regular ones too, and it was just super fun. So I highly encourage you to go if you're ever have an opportunity to go. You know, of course, Jean puts on the most wonderful retreats, and you'll just enjoy yourself the entire weekend. So, all right, enough of that. So those are my 2 big projects. Now let's look at some of the smaller ones that I worked on and finished up yesterday. Okay, so first of all, I have wanted to do this needfuls, all of these needful patterns, ever since the book came out. That happens so often. A book comes out, I think, okay, that's a must make, like right away, stat, as Laura would say. And then it doesn't happen because, you know, everything else is going on. So this I've had in my stash for a long time, and I made 2 of them this time. I will go back and make the others because I want all of them in a dough bowl. So the first one I made was vintage buttons, and it was super fast to make because really you're just doing the border and you're doing the letters, and I love the font in that word vintage. I just think that's really cool. And then there are buttons on the pattern that you can stitch, or you can choose to sew or glue, like I did, glue on your buttons afterwards. So I love how that turned out, and like I said, super fast to make. And then the next one I did, well, you can't see it very well, okay? It's the one in the back. And all of the letters in the alphabet were one color. And I wanted it to be a little more colorful than that, so I took the colors that were called for like that bottom, this one, and I changed them out. So I did each row a different color, and that was really fun to do. And it was a pretty quick stitch, but here's what I did. I was in the mood to do rice stitch, and I brought this little pillow to show you today, which I've showed you before. This was a pattern that I got at Silver Needle Retreat one time when I went. And it was done in rice stitch, and I had so much fun doing the rice stitch. Rice stitch is where you make a big X, so bigger than normal, usually. I guess you don't have to make bigger than normal. Okay, let's delete that. Let's just say you make an X, and then you stitch over the top, going from the middle to the middle here, from the middle to the middle here, middle to middle, middle to middle. So you've done an overlay on top of the X. And you can probably see that in this one, hopefully. What I decided is it probably looks better on a bigger count. Like maybe this is a 28 count, I don't know, but you can see the rice stitch a little better than you can see it on this one, which was, I think, a 40 count. I'm not sure. I think a 40 count. But it was fun to do it anyways. I enjoyed doing all of those alphabet letters in the rice stitch. So I am looking forward to doing, so there's 3 more of these that I haven't done, and I'm at least going to do these 2 front ones. I'm not sure if I'll do that back one, although that one would be a pretty one to do for Christmas in Christmas colors, so I might do that. So that was fun to get those 2 done. And then I finished this one. Let's see. There, Pennsylvania Dutch Tomato Pin Keep from With Thy Needle and Thread. As soon as I saw this, I think this is a retreat piece that Brenda did for some shop, or maybe it just came out early at one of the retreats, I'm not sure. As soon as I saw it, I wanted to do it. So I was so happy when it came out for all of us. So I showed it to you finished before, but I finished it into a drum. And I know I said I was going to send this out, but I just never got around to doing that. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to do it. It's my second ever drum. I watched Ivana's tutorial. You've got to watch her tutorial, Ivana the Twisted Stitcher, if you're going to do a drum or a strawberry. I did my first strawberry yesterday too, but I can't show you that because that's a pattern in hiding so far, but it will come out later. But of course her tutorials are amazing, and I watched it for my first drum, but that was like 1.5 years ago. So I watched it this time and I took notes in a notebook, and my thought is I need to just keep this notebook so I don't have to rewatch her video every time I want to do a drum. Keep all my notes in one notebook just for finishing techniques, and then I've got it in there. So yeah, I matched it up okay in the back. I say okay because this is coming apart a little bit. I kind of stitched it, and I didn't back stitch top or bottom because I wanted to see, you know, turn it inside out and see if I got it pretty close. And then what I should have done is gone back and gone over that stitch again, and I didn't. So when I was stuffing it full, which Ivana tells you to do, it kind of pulled a little bit. So anyway, I love how it turned out. I love her instructions. It's fun to do, and it's fun to just hold drums, don't you think? Like if you have a drum, it's kind of like Mr. Wiffle, who used to squeeze the Charmin. If you're old enough to remember that commercial, you hold a drum and you just kind of want to go, oh, yeah, that just is solid and it looks good. And although it looks a little, never mind, I'm not going to be critical. It's done. I'm happy to have it done, and I love it. All right, the next one I did was, this is a new designer, and I'll show you some of her patterns at the end, but Emily Call, and this one is Sweet Liberty, and I did America. I still want to do that one. And so this is the finish of that one. I just put ticking on the back and twine around the edges, which I do a lot. I like twine a lot. One thing I wanted to mention though, like on this one, was it this one? No, this is the next one. I'll tell you in a second. Okay, so the thing with this is, do you see these ridges here? These ridges along here. So I counted how many peaks there were, and there are 5, and I stitched, and it kind of crisscrosses. So I started stitching, and I did 5 peaks, and then I came back the other direction, went to bed. This was late one night. The next morning I'm looking at this and I'm like, there's 10 peaks. I know I counted 5. I know I was very careful about counting 5. How did I make it twice as long as it needed to be? So I ripped back the extra 5, finished the top, got to the bottom, you know, like a day later and thought, okay, I'm not making that, I'm not sure what I did, but I'm not going to do that again. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 peaks. I'm going to stitch 5 peaks, and then I started stitching back and realized when you stitch back the upside down V's, it makes peaks in between the peaks. So really, I only needed to make 3 peaks, and then when you stitch back, it makes the other 2, and I cannot believe I did that twice. Just telling you in case you run into something similar to that. It's an adorable pattern. It's not difficult at all, and I don't know why I did that. So I'm glad to have some more summer pin pillows for my, well, they all go to the shop. It's not like it's for my decorations, but right, another one I did, and this is a free pattern from Leela's Studio, and I went antiquing with a couple friends, and we found these little breadboard, paddleboard things in somebody's booth, and we all got them, and I was trying to figure out what can I put on there. Well, this is what I put on there. It's a tomato pattern, and I'm going to link to the pattern below because it was a little hard to find. It's not under her free patterns, but it is if you search a different way. I don't know. I'll link to it, but isn't that adorable? Perfect for this size. I'm sure I did it on 36 count to get it to be that size, and I may have changed up the color some, but it was just fun to do, and you know I love all the different tomato things. So, and then I did my camp project for June, and the challenge for June was to stitch something with a bird on it. So I picked a lot of things, and they're still in my small bag of possibilities. I ended up doing My Country by La Di Da because I love the long flowing flag, and I love that bird. And I did change up some colors. I wanted it to be a little more colorful. Now this is absolutely more primitive looking, but I changed my letters to blue. And then in this border, you can see it's like a checkerboard of light browns and dark browns. And I decided to do mine in red with nothing in between. So this is how it turned out. Super fun to stitch. It went quickly. The white stripes on the flag are meant to be left empty, but that just felt unfinished. So I did go ahead and fill mine in. And then what I was going to tell you about the trim is I had tea-dyed a lot of red and white baker's twine last year when I was finishing my patterns for the Advent, those patterns that went in the Advent kit last year. And when I went to put in on the red and white ticking, because I thought that would look really cute, especially on a patriotic piece, it was too bright. And luckily I found the rest of my tea-dyed baker's twine, and that was perfect for this particular piece. So now I'm thinking I need to take a bunch of my baker's twine, and I have quite a collection of it, and tea dye enough of it so that I've got options for when I'm doing something a little more primitive and the actual baker's twine is too dark, but tea dyed would be perfect. So that was a fun one to stitch, and it went pretty quickly. And then the only other thing I finished, and this is not really exciting, but is this piece, which I showed you this piece, I don't know, several videos ago, because I wanted to illustrate how you can use the same fabric and get a totally different look. So if you want to take a pattern and just do a piece of the pattern, say just one of these motifs, or you know, maybe you just want to do the scissors and the spool or something like that. You can even stitch it bigger on the same fabric scraps that you already have. So on this piece, I demonstrated 1/1, and the top one is a full cross and the bottom one is a half cross. And then I did 2 over 2, 4 over 4, and 6 over 6. And that refers to, when you hear people talk about 1 over 1, that means 1 strand of floss over 1 of the threads on the linen. 2 over 2 is 2 strands of floss over 2 linen threads to make your X. And then 4 over 4 is using 4 strands over 4 threads. So that's about twice as big as a regular piece that you might stitch. And then 6 over 6 is just using the DMC as it is, and look how big you can make those motifs. All in 32 count, all with the same thread, but just comes out different, which is kind of fun. So I found this piece at Hobby Lobby. Hobby Lobby? Yeah, Hobby Lobby. And thought it would be fun to finish something on. And then I thought, well, I've always wanted to somehow finish this so I can keep it at the shop, so people can kind of see a demo of different stitches. So that was another one of my finishes in the sewing room yesterday. All right, that's all my smalls. Let me see what I have next to show you. All right, I have 2 things of stash that I bought that are not at all like the normal stash I get, but I really want to make these things. Okay, the first one, I saw this on Etsy in a lot meaning a big grouping of stitching supplies that somebody wanted to sell the whole bunch of it together, and I really only wanted this one pattern when I saw it, and I'm going to have to, of course, re-kit it because I don't want to stitch it on a 14 count Aida, and I want it a little bit smaller. But look at this, isn't that fun? All of those, it's a bell pull, I don't know what it's called. It's one of those things, maybe it says on here. Anyway, I just loved the winter scene and all of the different houses and the mill. Is there a mill? No, but there's a covered bridge. I love it. So it's got, I don't know what, it's got the little trim and all of the threads, which I'll probably, I don't know if I'll replace them or not. Anyway, it was just kind of fun to find it. So I did not buy the lot. I went searching for it just by its name and found it by itself. Okay, the other thing that I got is, this just intimidates me to no end. I have a Dimensions piece, full coverage, that I love. It's a winter scene. I've showed it to you guys before. But I am so intimidated to do these pieces. If you watch Stitch Bliss Corner, you will be very motivated to want to try a full coverage piece. So what I did was I ordered a small kit. So they have these smalls. Is it called a petite? Gold collection, petite. Anyway, I thought, okay, I'm going to try a small, and if I can handle the small, maybe I can wade myself into doing the large someday. So it comes with your fabric and all your threads, and it still intimidates the heck out of me. But some of those pieces, those full coverage pieces, I mean, they're just incredible. Those of you guys who do them, I can't, my hat is off to you. I can't even imagine. I look, even this little tiny chart, I look at it and it's just like all the stitches all over the place. Oh. But I want to try it, so I'm going to try it sometime. Not yet, but at least I have it ready to go when I want to do that. Okay, so plans for next time, before I go into my little bags here. July camp is coming up, and just a reminder that I do cross stitch camp every summer. This is our 3rd summer, and it's free, it's virtual. Jump in. You don't have to do all the months. You can do 1 month, you can do all the months, whatever you want to do. So July's challenge, there's always a challenge. July's challenge is to include something that grows in your pattern. So June was a bird, so that's why I made that little bird carrying the flag. And July is something that grows. So I've changed my mind about a dozen times, which always happens during camp, because I think I like having a challenge, and I like finding the pattern, and then I see a different one. I think, oh, I want to do that one. So this is not what's in my camp bag ready for July, but it is what I'm going to do. Because I was talking to my friend Deanna at Stitch Night and telling her about this, and she went with me to Bristol, and we're going to summer school in August. And we talked about doing a stitcher's mat, and I said, oh, I've always wanted to do this one from Scattered Seed Samplers, and I've had it in my stash. And I showed it to her, and she's like, oh, well, we have to do that. So this is what I'm doing for July camp, and hopefully I can finish it off and make it into a stitching mat to take with me. So I've got it all kitted up here, which I've had it kitted up for a while, and ready to go. So that is my July. The August challenge is to do something new to you. So it could be a new designer, it could be a new type of fabric, it could be a new type of thread, it could be a new finishing technique. You know, really the sky's the limit on that one. And I change my mind all the time because I'm always not looking for an excuse to try somebody new, but I think if I see somebody new that I haven't stitched before, I think, oh, I'll do that. And then, you know, I see somebody else and I think, oh, I'll do that. So I've got some options for August, but I haven't decided for sure yet. Just a reminder, Instagram is a little futzy. We're doing Instagram. That's our social media of record. So if you're doing camp, you do have to have an Instagram account. You can just make an account just for your stitching, just for camp, where you post a beginning picture and an end picture and never post again. But two things, because I get a lot of messages from people who say, I don't think you've seen or you haven't liked my photo, because I go through about every 24 to 36 hours, click like, update my list, and probably half the time I haven't seen their post because the account is private. So check your settings and make sure your account is not set to private. If your account is private, I can't see anything that you post, nor can anybody else except for your friends. The second thing is, please use these hashtags. So there are all kinds of variations of these hashtags out there. Probably 25% of the messages I get where I haven't liked something, it's because they've used a different hashtag. Summer Cross Stitch Camp, Colorado Cross Stitch Camp, Cross Stitch 2023, something other than this. And when I check the list, I check this hashtag and this hashtag. It's helpful to have the second one because sometimes if you've messed up the first one, I can still catch you on the second one. So please make sure to use the correct hashtags so that I get to see your photo. If it's been 3 days and I haven't liked your photo yet, then yes, please do message me on Instagram. Be sure to do it on Instagram because then I can just click right over to your profile and figure it out. You know, Instagram's still being a little hinky about how they're showing hashtags. I think that I'm getting to see most of them, but they're still, it's not ideal. It's not like it's been the last 2 years. So for sure, if I haven't liked it in like 3 days since you posted, go ahead and send me a message. Okay, so I was thinking, I was going through my patterns. I don't have, well, I do have a lot of patterns. I was going to say I don't have that many. I mean, a lot of you have a lot more patterns than I do, but let's put it that way. But I was going through my pattern bins last week, kind of organizing and kind of seeing what I had, and I just came across so many smaller ones that I thought, oh, I forgot I had that. I really want to do that. So what I decided to do was organize my patterns into different seasons, my smalls, not my large ones, but my small ones. And you know, I've talked to you about my book bag of small possibilities. These are patterns that I've kitted up so they're ready to go. Like I can just pull this out. I've got everything I need. The fabric's cut, the threads are in there. So this is kitted smalls. What I'm going to show you in a minute are not kitted smalls. This is another one. This was from her club this year. Still have this one. I've shown you that one before. Well, look how pretty those colors are. I need to get to that one. Oh, I love this one by La Di Da. I'm ready to go. And if it's DMC, I put all my DMC on thread milk floss drops, and just because I like to keep my different threads on different types of floss drops. So all my MPIs are on those kitty floss drops that we have in the shop. My Versoirs are on those teardrop kind of plastic ones we have, and these are on the thread milk. If it's hand dyed, I just leave it on the original. All right, I have a note for myself on this one. Oh, this was gonna be my piece for, no, that's not true. This was gonna be my original piece for camp in June, and then I went to this one, and then I ended up with the patriotic one. See what I mean about changing my mind? And then the last one kitted up in here is Teresa Koget's. So I keep a bag of smalls kitted up because sometimes you just want to start something and I just want to sit down and stitch. I don't want to have to pull the fabric. I don't want to have to pull the threads and maybe be out of some threads. I just don't want to have to think about it. So I keep one bag of all the little things that are kitted up, ready to go, that I'm excited about. And that's what gave me the idea of going into kind of organizing by season some of the smalls I don't want to forget. So these just have patterns in them that I want to do that I don't want to lose track of in my big pattern bin. So this one's for winter because my birthday's in February. So cute stitch tote bag. So I have Joy, Snowman, Joy, Snow Joyful, Snow Joyful. And this I've had for a couple years, the Madame Chantilly Hot Cocoa, which is also a candidate for August camp because I haven't stitched one of hers. I love this older Brenda Gervais Snow Day. This one is, what is that like? Oh, I can't show this one. Never mind, I can't show it to you anyways because it's, oh, I can show you this side. I was gonna say because it's a pattern. It's got the pattern on the back. So that one I thought would be fun to do. This one I even have in a little project bag, and I think I've had this kitted up since like the 80s or something. Anyway, little heart and hand one. So those are the winter smalls that, and I don't know, maybe I will repopulate my small bag of possibilities and kit them all up for winter and move them into that bag. I haven't thought about that. Maybe. Christmas, these are my Christmas ones. I put it in a Christmas bag. Oh, I got a lot of Christmas ones that I want to do. And I didn't even put all of them. These are my like sooner rather than later ones that I want to do. Oh, because there's a lot. Okay, I want to do all of Heart and Hand's Wee Santas. How cute are those Santas? So I just have 2 of them in here. I need to collect all the rest of them, but I love her Santas. This is a little sheep one that I want to do. Let's see, what is this one called? Letters for Santa. Oh, I've always loved that one from With Thy Needle and Thread. This one I just got. It's an old pattern. Not sure I'm going to enjoy that chart, but I love wonky looking angels. This one I've had for a while. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, which if I'm going to do just part of that or, but there's just so many pretty things in there. And this one I saw, you know how I have a thing for, apparently I have a thing for Christmas colors and projects. This reminds me kind of that historic Stickmooster one that I just started, but it's got other stuff in it too, so that one. Oh, I love this one. Noel Sampler from Brenda Gervais. I saw that one done up, I think at the Silver Needle, and It's just gorgeous in person, as are all patterns. You know, they look so much better in person rather than in these photos that never ever do them justice. Wishing me merriness. I just had these for too long. I want to get at them. Jenny Bean's Christmas sampler. Shakespeare's Peddler. Peace and Goodwill sampler. Another one that I've had for a while. I kind of see doing this one and this one kind of together, or hanging them together. And this one I just got, and it's not a small, so it probably shouldn't be in this little bag, but I'm going to show it to you anyways, because I was kind of thinking, you know, last Christmas I did a nativity pattern, and I thought that was really fun to do in December during the Christmas season. Maybe I'll do a different nativity every December. So I'm kind of in the mode to start collecting nativity samplers. You know, honestly, this is not a small either, and this is not a small either. So apparently in my Christmas one, it's just Christmas patterns that I would like to do, not necessarily a small. All right, and then I have two more bags. My Independence Day, another bag by my friend Sandy. We do sell Sandy's bags in the shop. And if she ever gets to the point where she can do more bags, I'd be happy to put those online. But right now I like having bags in the shop for people. But oh my gosh, she does such a nice job. Look at that. Okay. This is an old Shepherd's Bush kit. I don't know that you can see that. It's a little needle roll, Independence Day. Got the stuff in it. Of course, Red, White, and Bloom. I really got on a patriotic roll this past month. This one I think is so pretty with the needle and thread. And it came with the little fabric that you put around the edge. This might have been a kit. Where did I get this? I don't remember where I got it. This little flag sampler. This, okay, I know how much stitching is involved in this. It finishes up to a small, but it's like those Hands Across the Sea block party designs. You don't realize all of the stitching around the edge, how much time that takes. Yeah, it's pretty long. So maybe I'll do that, or maybe I'll just do the lady on top. Oh, I love this one, Long May She Wave. This is a company, I was visiting the stitching shop in Albuquerque where my son lives, because I always look to see if there's a cross stitch shop, and this is one of the ones I bought there. I thought that was kind of fun. And every single one of these, like every single one of these, I love. Teresa Kogut's designs, aren't they just super fun? So this whole book is on my list and in my bag. This way I feel like I can keep more of a handle on those patterns that I really want to do. I mean, of course I want to do pretty much all the patterns in my stash, or at least maybe 95%. Maybe there's 5% that I think, maybe my taste has changed. I don't know if I'm going to end up doing that, but these are ones that I want to do sooner. All right, this is my fall bag. See, that gives you another excuse to go buy some new project bags. You can buy them for each season and put your fun stash in there. So this is an old Lizzie Kate one. This one I can't show because it's just a pattern, but it has a really cute little moon charm on it. It's called Scary Jack. Oh, I want to do this. I've done the owl, which I love the owl, so I've got to do this one. I might change it to look like Oliver, because that would be fun to have a little Ollie. Leela's Studio. I think on this one, oh, I liked the cat, but I also like her plaid skirt. It's just a cute one. Let's see, this one is, no, it's kitted up. In Everything, Give Thanks, Heartstring Samplery. This is because I don't have a lot of pin pillows that are just Thanksgiving. So I remember buying this thinking I need to do that. I've wanted to do Thomas for a long time. Is this not Forgotten Farms? Yeah. And then I put this one in because I want to do that Crow Giant Strawberry. I don't know that I'm going to finish it as a strawberry because, well, I might. Who knows? So those are my different seasonal pieces that I just have in mind that I want to do soon, and I like having them pulled out of the bigger stash, ready to peruse, ready to kit up, ready to dive into anytime I want to. All right, now I'm going to do the drawing from last time, the new drawing that we're going to have, and then I'm going to show you two pieces that are hanging in my shop, but I did not stitch them. They're big and they're awesome, and I'll tell you that story. And then I'm going to show a few things from the shop. Oh, my 3 things. Okay, gotta go backwards. 3 things, because I want to do that before I do the shop stuff. So, let me find my list that I had these listed on. Oh, for Pete's sake, you wouldn't believe what a mess this table is. You would believe it if you FlossTube. Okay, Curry Bungalow. So I came across this, and I bought this probably 2 months ago, and just haven't shown it to you yet. So it is a thread, a floss keeper, a thread, an Ort wastebasket. I have plenty of Orts in there. And what I like about it is it hangs on the side of the table that sits next to me. So I had a little, first of all, I had a little Ort container, and it just gets filled up so fast, and then it's overflowing and it's annoying. Then I had a bigger basket down below, but then things would drop off my table and I'd be afraid they were going to land in the basket. So this is great because it's right up the top. It has this beautiful pin cushion on top, which is removable if you want to take this somewhere, and how cute is that? And then the bottom of this has like a gripper pad. Not that it necessarily needs it, because it hangs on the table, the side of the table, just fine, especially with the weight of the pin cushion, and it's very weighted. It's totally filled with lizard glitter or something like that. So she just does beautiful, beautiful work. When I pulled this out, I just was so impressed with her attention to detail and how meticulous this whole thing was. So I will link to her shop below. She sells some finished, but she also sells patterns if you're a seamstress and want to make your own, which you know I do not want to do that because I'd rather be stitching. So I was glad to be able to buy that. All right, the second thing I got is from Danielle's Craft Shop on Etsy. This is Curry Bungalow is also Etsy. And I've ordered from Danielle before. This time I got 2 pieces from her. One is this cute little scissor holder, and actually it's made so you can put 2 pairs of scissors in there. I have a bigger piece that has like a dozen scissors in it that I keep in my cart, but I like to keep this just right next to me because then I'm not going through all of the stuff. I just pull out, you know, my favorite one, which I don't even have in here. My favorite one is the Kohana scissors. And that's where this one goes, and I'm stitching with it. So, but this is magnetized. So it's a little mushroom that has a magnet in it, so you can set your needle there when you're pulling your thread, getting ready to thread again. And so she does a great job. And then I saw this, which I was really excited to see. Okay, a thread, a random thread. And it has a scissor holder on the side, but it's also a thread keep where you can put spools. And when I do my Christmas designs that have red and green, I am always like making something up. Like I threaded some yarn through the spool and hung the yarn on one of my the legs of one of my tables so I could just wind it off. This is exactly what I needed instead. So I will put the red and green spool here. It fits the sulky, which is what I'm using, but it also fits the 103s and Swasserfine and all of those things. And so if you're just doing a 1 or 2 color project, then you can put it on here and just pull out what you need, and perfect. All right, and then the third one is an Instagram account for you to check out. And this guy's name is Matt Taylor, and his Instagram, I will link it below, but it's EMTY01. And the last 2 things that he put up are really what caught my attention as a knitter, but he does, it's not animation in that it's graphic, it's real stuff. It's hard to explain. You're just going to have to go look at it. So these last 2 knitting ones, it was like the yarn was unraveling at the top and re-knitting itself at the bottom, and it was just like, it was very cool. So go look at that. I will link to his account below. You've got to check him out. All right, now let's get to who won the project bag from last time, which is this really super cute bike. And these bags are donated by Deborah at Joyful Stitching Store on Etsy, and she does a fabulous job on her project bags. Always really cute little pulls here. She puts in for us for our giveaways. She puts in a little accessory case and matching DMC, and like I said, I have so many of her bags. She just does a beautiful, beautiful job, and she donates these for our giveaways. So Deborah, thank you again. I hope you guys all go over to see her shop. I always link to her shop in my show notes. The winner of this bag, and you had to use the word camp, is Josie Connor. So Josie, if you're watching this, make sure that you get my email address. It's in the show notes, and give me a shout out, and I will get this in the mail to you. And then this one, okay, you guys are gonna love this one. Look how beautiful that is. Isn't that so pretty? So this is the giveaway for next time. Let's see. What are we gonna use for our word so that you're included in that? Let's use the word animals. You got some animals here, animals. If you want to be entered into the drawing for this bag next time, use the word animals in your comment below. All right, I forgot to do a question of the day last time, which I always do because it gives you something to start talking about in the comments, and then it's always fun to see people's answers to these. So the question, what is one of your favorite things about summertime in the place where you live? Maybe you have a big state fair, maybe you have some kind of festival, maybe you love being surrounded by the mountains. So what is your favorite, one of your favorite things about being where you are in the summertime? Mine, living here in Fort Collins, is the cool nights and the cool mornings. Having grown up in the Midwest where you go to bed at 11 and it's, I don't know what % humidity, but it's suffocatingly hot, and you get up in the morning and it's still suffocatingly hot, and I just love that here in Colorado it cools off at night. We can always sit out on our back deck for dinner, which you just could not do in St. Louis all the time, and I love getting up in the morning and it's cool and the air is just fresh, and so that's what I love about living here in the summertime. So tell me what you love about living in the summertime where you live. All right, let's just real quick go through a few shop things and then we'll be done. So the first thing I wanted to do, you know, I told you, and I meant to have them here, but honestly they're in my project right now, is my favorite scissors, which are Kohanas, and I use the smaller embroidery size all the time. I have Dovos, I have Seiju. These are Seiju. I love these because my son got me these, so I do love these, and I always keep these right here too. Anyway, Karen Buckley, I have all the good scissors, but I reach for my Kohanas every time. They're lightweight, they're super precise. But we also have, and we have a few left in the store in a chocolate brown, if you like chocolate, and a red color. So we have red and brown. We also have red and brown in their sewing shears size. This is how Kohanas come. They come in a box like this, and then you open it up, and they're wrapped in a little cloth. So I just thought I'd show you this sewing size. I don't know that I'll carry them necessarily again. I don't know. All right. And then here's the scissors wrapped up nice. Oh, I could just pull them right out. These are, of course, heavier than the embroidery ones, but boy, they're perfect for cutting your cross-stitch fabrics. And then they also come with a leather sheath so that you can keep the tip safe. And anyway, the presentation is just so beautiful with Kohanas. Well, let's see if I can fold it all back up. So we also have the Kohana sewing shears in the shop in chocolate and red. I think I need chocolate for dessert apparently tonight because. So I wanted to mention that because we don't always have Kohanas in stock. All right, we've added in 2 new designers since my last FlossTube, and one of them I already talked about, so I'll start with her. And that is Emily Call. I just brought a few patterns. She's got a bunch of patterns. So long may she wave. I bought this for my own self too, because I love the angel. You know, I said I like, oh no, this isn't the angel one, is it? I bought the angel one. Anyway, I did buy this one too, because I like the little town. And then we have Uncle Sam. He's cute. I don't have an Uncle Sam in my patriotic pillow display. This one that I already showed you that I did, one of them already. This is the angel I was talking about because I like quirky angels. But then she also has these patterns for all the seasons, which I thought was really unique how she designed them tall like that, which would certainly be cool in your dough bowl because you've got a lot of pillows at all the same level. You can put a few of these in to pop them up. But she also has regular patterns too. So here's one of the cute little ghost. So that's just a few. We have more. Check it out. And we added Jennifer's Violets and Verses, added some of her patterns in. This is probably my favorite because I love that it has 3 houses. Mary Ann Houghton. Mary Ellis 1850. For those of you who are looking for a smaller sampler to kind of get your feet wet, something like this is good because it doesn't have a lot of motifs, but it has a beautiful flower basket. You've only got a few alphabets to do. Super fun. This one I love because again, red and green, so I'll probably end up doing this one. Co Henderson 1841. C.O. Henderson. It's a Scottish sampler. C. Divine 1847. Now the colors in this are just gorgeous, aren't they? And look at that border. So pretty. And Jane Jackson 1842. Again, the colors. I mean, if the colors are stunning on the pattern photo, you know they're going to be to die for in real life because of what we talked about earlier. They can only get better. And then Martha Horboys, and this is her Bristol sampler that she just got and reproduced. The thing about the Bristol samplers is, you know, all of those records have been kept at the orphanage. So when you find a Bristol sampler, you can look up, you can contact them and they can look up all the information on the girl or the boy who stitched your sampler. And back here, Jennifer included a copy of some of her records that they have on account. So she knows, you know, what brought Martha to the orphanage, how long she stayed, what she did when she got out. So it's pretty cool that they have that history. Then we have 2 new patterns from Brenda Gervais with Thy Needle, At Home, and A Girl in Her Garden. I think the girl in her garden kind of goes with the witch in her garden that she came out with last fall, which was fun. Made into a drum, but there you can see the whole long piece of it. I don't think I've shown you this, but I love the idea of this, a Stitcher's Retreat House by Pansy Patch. It's really fun. And then Teresa Kogut came out with new patterns. This, I just can't even how much I love this. I started it. I've started the big piece. Not enough to even show you because I just started with the house and I think I have like the first row of windows done is all, but I love that so much. That is all about what we're doing. And I also want to stitch this one because I'm sure you don't remember, one time I showed you a dustpan that I found at the antique store in green. So I'm going to have to make that and finish it just like that. And I will probably just replace whatever green she used so that it's a green that perfectly matches my dustpan. Remember we talked about that, a way to make your finishes look even a little more professional is matching your thread color to your trim color, or one of the colors inside to whatever you're finishing it on. And it's not that difficult to do, to just swap out one color so that the match is perfect. And she also has Sweet Land of Liberty and Rapid Growth and Stitchy Bird, which I will also be doing for my own self. All right, then I wanted to show you these patterns. Oops. And then I have a few accessories to show you. So this is Summer House Stitchworks, and she is doing a set of 4 perforated paper ornaments. They range in size from about 50 by 50 stitch count to about 70 by 70. And right now we still have some of her charm sets available. So this one charm set will do all of the ornaments in all 4 of the series. So the next series comes out a little later this summer, and then I think one in the fall. So I just thought these would be super fun to do for a little miniature Christmas tree, or they would be fun to do as gift tags or little extra tie-ons to your packages. So those are fun. All right, and then we have new stickers. All right, so you know about these, which we've had for quite a while now, the cross-stitch stickers for your calendar or for whatever. But this week or last week I also added in coffee, because coffee, of course you have to have the coffee. And these adorable animals, wild. I like that she always does smaller ones on the back, because sometimes in my calendar I have just a small space to fill. I don't, contrary to what it looks like, I don't feel like I have to fill my whole calendar of just stuff. But I do, sometimes there's just a space that needs a little. So I love that. And then she also has big ones. Let's see, the new ones we added, Crazy Cross Stitch Lady. Now these are fun to put on like a tumbler, like a or a water bottle. I bought a stainless steel tumbler at Hobby Lobby, I think $9, and I've had fun putting a lot of these stickers on. I don't, they're vinyl coated. I would just say be careful. Of course, I never put them in the dishwasher. I hand wash them. I don't soak them in the sink. I just dunk them and, you know, wash the insides, but I haven't had any trouble with any of them. Never Enough Floss is another new one that we added in. Cross-stitching rocks. And then the older ones we have, Getting Through the Day, One Stitch at a Time. I have that on my Tumblr. Make Time to Make Stuff. Put that in my calendar. Cross-stitcher. Just one more stitch and floss every day. All right, 2 more things. We added in Lady Dot ribbons. And she has a couple of different kind of ribbons. She has ones that I don't think are dyed, they're just plain. And then she has ones that are dyed, and those are called grubby. And I am going to be trying to finish something in with the ribbon around the edge with the ruching. You know, if you run a gathering stitch all down the length of your ribbon and then you gather it up and you can glue it on. I had no idea. Kyle from Stitch Night brought in her pillow and she had glued on the ruched ribbon and it looked fantastic. You could not tell that it was glued. Always use Aleene's tacky glue because it dries clear. So I'm going to be trying that, but we have all of those. And then I just got in these adorable little accessory cases. How cute are those? All right, they do fit a snips scissor, barely, but they're perfect for your needles. So what I'm going to do with mine is put a needle minder in here, and then all my needles will stick to that, and then I've got this container of all new needles in my project bag, my big project bag, anytime I need them. So the two big pieces I was telling you about that I did not stitch, they were stitched by a friend of mine, Penny. She had a shop in Cheyenne, Wyoming called U Count, and she passed away a couple years ago. And so all of the things in her shop were for sale, including her shop models. And I worked with Penny for years when I owned the yarn shop, because Penny's shop was a combination knitting shop and cross-stitching shop. And so we worked together for years on our shop hops for the yarn community. And so we went up and I bought these two amazing models, and I think they were $20 each. And so I wanted to show them to you. I have them in our shop. I like having things that Penny stitched in there. She was a beautiful cross stitcher. And I did order the full sets of patterns because I had so many people, of course, asking about them. So here's the first one. And it's the Gingerbread Village from Country Cottage Needleworks. And we'll just look at how pretty that is. I don't know what she stitched it on, you know, because that information is down in the back, but isn't that super fun? I have a friend, Christy, who decorates her kitchen in gingerbread men every year. She really needs to do this one. So we have the set of all of those patterns for this. And then the second one that I got is even bigger. And that's this one. No, there's just so much to look at, isn't there? I'll put my glasses on to read. I think this is Santa's Village. But I'm going to look. Yeah, Santa's Village. And so we have the whole set of Santa's Village also in the shop. Two beautiful pieces. All right. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. This was a little longer probably than normal. Sorry about that. But I'm glad you joined me. I will be back again in a month. I'm trying to do it like the last weekend of the month-ish, depending on what we have going on. And I'm excited to see what you guys have been working on. Tell me in your comments what you're working on or what you're doing for camp, if you're doing camp, or what your focus is this summer. Anyway, it's always fun to talk to you in the comments. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.